There are 5 mistakes that ruin more tomato harvests than all pests combined. 5 habits that almost all of us repeat, believing they help. Today, I will tell you about them from the least to the most serious. And I'll warn you about something. More than half of the people watching me right now are making mistake number 1. I made it for years without realizing it, and it cost me entire seasons. So stay until the end because this list builds up. Each mistake carries more weight than the previous one, and the last one alone decides whether you eat tomatoes from your garden or from the supermarket this summer. Top 5. Leaving lower leaves in contact with the soil. Let's start with number 5, the least serious of the 5. But beware, less serious does not mean harmless. This mistake doesn't wipe out your harvest all at once. It silently gnaws away at it from below without you seeing it coming. Look at the base of your tomato plants. Down there, close to the ground, there are a few old leaves. The first ones the plant grew when it was small. You've probably left them there because, after all, what harm can a few leaves do? Well, I'll tell you because the harm is serious. Those bottom leaves are no longer of any use to the plant. When the tomato plant was a seedling, they were its solar panels that fed it. But now, with the plant fully grown, they live in the shadow of the foliage above. They receive no light, produce almost nothing. They are retired. And the problem isn't that they are retired. The problem is where they live. They live at ground level. And every time you water, every time a summer downpour hits, the drops strike the dirt and bounce. And in that bounce, they splash mud upward, mud that carries fungal spores. Blight, the one that turns leaves black and wipes out entire tomato plants in a week, lives in the soil waiting for exactly that, a bouncing drop and a low leaf to land on. Think of it like the door to your house. You can have the windows closed and the alarm set, but if you leave the bottom door wide open, everything gets in through there. Those lower leaves are the open door to your tomato plant, a direct walkway between the fungus-filled soil and the inside of the plant. It took me a while to learn this. I felt bad removing green leaves. It felt like I was mutilating the plant. Until one summer, I saw blight climbing up 2 of my tomato plants, starting right there, on the leaves touching the ground. Since then, I don't spare a single one. The solution takes 5 minutes and a pair of scissors. Remove all the leaves and small branches below the first cluster of flowers. All of them. Leave the base of the plant clear with a clean stem and air flowing underneath. Without leaves at ground level, splashes have nowhere to land. Moisture doesn't stagnate at the base, and you've just closed the main door to diseases. An important detail, because there is a nuance here that almost no one mentions. Do this when the plant is dry, preferably on the morning of a sunny day. And don't yank the leaves off. Make a clean cut. Every cut is a small wound, and a wound on a humid day is another open door. Cut when it's dry, the wound heals quickly, and you're done. And since you have the scissors in your hand, take the opportunity to look inside the plant. If you see areas so thick that air can't flow, thin them out a bit. Air is free and is one of the best fungicides that exist. A well-ventilated tomato plant gets sick much less than a tomato plant turned into a jungle. That is mistake number 5, leaving the bottom door open. Easy to fix, takes 5 minutes, and you take away blight's favorite entrance. Top 4, wetting the foliage and watering at dusk. It is of little use to close the bottom door if you are then wetting the walls of the house yourself every day, because mistake number 4 is exactly about that. How you water. Not how much, but where the water falls and what time of day you apply it. And this is where a lot of people, with all their good intentions, throw a party for the fungus every afternoon without knowing it. Mistake number 4 is wetting the leaves and watering at the wrong time. Let's go with the usual scene because you will surely recognize it. Afternoon arrives, the heat drops a bit, you go out to the garden with the hose, and you water from above, watering the whole plant from top to bottom, as if it were a refreshing shower. The leaves get wet, they drip, everything is nice and cool. You go to sleep thinking you have given the tomato plant exactly what it needed, but what you have given it is the worst night possible. Here you have to understand one thing about fungi, and once you understand it, you won't forget it. Blight, powdery mildew, almost all the fungi that devastate tomato plants need the same thing to germinate. A wet leaf in time, quiet time, without sun to dry it, without air to ventilate it. And when do you give it both things at once? Exactly. When you water the leaves at nightfall. That leaf stays wet all night in the cool and damp for 10 or 12 hours straight. It is the perfect environment. You are making the bed for the disease. I always compare it to leaving clothes hanging out at night. You hang them wet at dusk, and in the morning they are still damp, cold with that musty smell. They don't dry because they lack the sun. Well, your tomato plant's leaf is the same. Wet at night, it doesn't dry, and that is where the fungus settles in and starts to eat. And it's two mistakes in one because it's not just the time, it's also the location. The tomato plant doesn't drink through its leaves. It drinks through its roots. All that water you pour over the top doesn't feed it. It only wets the foliage and promotes disease. The water has to go down to the soil, to the base where the roots that actually drink are located. So mistake number 4 is fixed with 2 changes that cost you neither money nor effort. First, always water the soil, never the plant. Aim at the base where the stem meets the dirt and leave the leaves dry. If you have drip irrigation, you already do this without thinking. If you water by hand, lower your hand and pour the water down gently without splashing the leaves. Second, change the time. Water early in the morning first thing instead of at dusk. And this has a double reward. On the one hand, if a drop falls on a leaf, the rising sun quickly dries it and the fungus doesn't get its window of moisture. On the other hand, the plant enters the hot hours hydrated, which is exactly when it needs it most. Water at night and you leave it wet and in the dark. Water in the morning and you leave it quenched and in the sun. The same water, opposite result. I know that watering in the afternoon is convenient because that's when you finish your tasks and have some free time. But get up 10 minutes earlier, a couple of times a week, water at the base and in the morning, and you will save yourself half of the summer's fungal problems. Top 3, abusing nitrogen-rich fertilizer. We reach mistake number 3, and here we get into the big ones, the ones that truly leave you without tomatoes even if the plant looks like a champion. Mistake number 3 is overdoing it with fertilizer, especially nitrogen-rich fertilizer. And this one is treacherous because it's the only one on the list that tricks you into believing you're winning. Let me explain. You apply a generous amount of fertilizer loaded with nitrogen, and the plant responds like a rocket. It grows, becomes huge, lush, a beautiful dark green, with a stem as thick as a trunk. You look at it swelling with pride. What a massive tomato plant, you think. This is going to yield tomatoes by the bucket load. Then August arrives and that spectacular bush has exactly 4 tomatoes. What happened? Nitrogen is the nutrient for green growth, for leaves, for stems. When you give it nitrogen by the handful, the plant receives a very clear message. Grow, get big, put out leaves. And it obediently does so, but it spends all its energy building foliage, building muscle, and forgets about the only thing you care about, which is flowering and setting fruit. It's like a bodybuilder who only lifts weights to build biceps and never runs. They have a great body, but they can't endure a race. All leaf, no tomato. Read that again, because it goes against everyone's instinct. A tomato plant that is too green and too big is not a sign of success. Often, it is a sign that you have gone overboard with nitrogen and you are going to be left without a harvest. And then what does the plant do with so many leaves? On top of that, it complicates things further for you. So much tightly packed foliage blocks the air, shades any fruits it might have, and once again creates that closed, humid environment where, as you already know, fungi appear. In other words, excess fertilizer not only takes away your tomatoes, but it also invites the diseases from mistakes 4 and 5. Everything is connected. The solution is to understand that the tomato plant needs different things at different times. At the beginning, when it is young and needs to get strong, yes, a balanced fertilizer is good for its growth. But as soon as the first flowers start to appear, you have to shift gears. From then on, what they ask for is not nitrogen for more leaves, but potassium for flowers and fruits. Potassium is what moves the plant toward the harvest, what fattens the tomatoes and gives them flavor. When you see the first yellow flowers, lower the nitrogen and switch to something richer in potassium. A little well-used wood ash or a specific tomato fertilizer with a low first number. That timely gesture is the difference between a decorative shrub and a plant loaded with fruit. Top 2, daily and shallow watering. Mistake number 2 is watering a little bit and often. Daily and shallow watering. Almost everyone does this, and it's done out of love. That's why it's so hard to admit. You go out every day, you see the topsoil is dry, you feel bad, and you give it a little water. The next day, the same thing, a little bit every day, faithfully, without fail. You think you are caring for it meticulously, but what you are unknowingly raising is a weak and lazy plant. I'll explain why. Because this is one of the things that changes a harvest the most, and almost no one explains it well. When you water a little bit every day, the water only wets the top 2 or 3 inches of soil. It never soaks deep. And tomato roots aren't stupid. They will look for water where it is. If the water's always up at the surface, the roots stay up, growing sideways, clinging to the top layer, without bothering to go down. Why would they go down if the water always comes to the surface? And there you have a disaster waiting for its moment. A tomato plant with shallow roots is a plant with feet of clay. The first truly hot day arrives, one of those 104-degree heat waves. That top layer dries out in 2 hours, and the plant is left with nothing to hold on to. It wilts, gets stressed, and a stressed tomato plant drops its flowers, stops setting fruit, and the tomatoes it did have crack or get that spot on the bottom. All because of roots that never learned to go deep. I see it like raising a child. If you hand them everything on a silver platter, they never learn to fend for themselves. The day things get tough, they don't know what to do. The daily watered tomato plant is just that, a spoiled child with weak roots. The one that has had to search downward for water is a hardened plant capable of withstanding a heat wave without breaking a sweat. So mistake number 2 is fixed by flipping everything you believed upside down. Don't water a little bit every day. Water a lot and occasionally. A heavy watering that truly soaks deep, and then you let the soil dry out on top before watering again. What do you achieve with this? The water goes down and the roots chase it downward. You build a plant with deep, strong roots, capable of drinking from the reserve below when everything above is dust and fire. Instead of watering a little every day, water properly every 3 or 4 days depending on the heat. Stick your finger in the dirt before watering. If there is still some moisture 2 inches deep, wait. Let the plant work. Let it stretch its roots searching. And here enters your best summer ally once again. Mulch. A good layer of straw, dry grass, or pruning debris around the plant. That blanket prevents the deep irrigation water from evaporating as soon as the sun hits, keeps the moisture down below for days, and allows the plant to drink peacefully between waterings. Deep watering plus mulch is the combination that separates the garden that survives the summer from the one that gives up in July. It's not about watering more often, but watering better. Deep and spaced out, not shallow and daily. Top 1. Planting too late. We've reached number 1, the most serious of the 5, the one that decides the entire season all by itself. And I'm warning you now, it cannot be fixed in the middle of summer. It can only be prevented. That's why it is the most important of all. Mistake number 1 is planting too late. It seems harmless, right? Planting a few weeks later, what difference does it make? Well, it makes a huge difference because the tomato has an unavoidable appointment with the calendar, and if it arrives late to that appointment, no fertilizer, watering, or care will save it. Let me explain the trap. For a tomato to set fruit, it has to flower, and those flowers must be pollinated well. And here is the detail that almost no one knows. Tomato pollen is sensitive to heat. When the days exceed 95 degrees, and especially when the nights don't cool down and stay hot, those tropical summer nights of ours, the pollen becomes sterile. It doesn't work. The flower opens, yes, but it doesn't set, and by not setting, it falls off. Flowers upon flowers falling to the ground without yielding a single tomato. Now connect the dots. If you plant late, your tomato plant flowers right in the middle of July and August, in the most brutal heat. That is, it tries to set its flowers exactly during the weeks when the pollen is useless. It arrives at its most important appointment on the worst possible day. No matter how healthy the plant is, no matter how much you care for it, those flowers are not going to set because the heat won't let them. And what is the strategy of those who harvest tomatoes by the bucket load? Planting early, getting ahead, so that the plant reaches July fully grown, strong, and above all, with its first clusters already set before the worst of the heat arrives. When the 104-degree heat hits, those tomatoes will already be set, fattening up, and the plant will only have to endure the stretch. Whoever plants on time sets fruit before the oven. Whoever plants late flowers inside the oven. That's why this is number one, and that's why more than half of the people are making it, because the time to prevent it is in the spring, when it still seems like there is plenty of time. And by the time you see the problem in the middle of summer, there is no longer a fix for this season. But don't let this get you down, because there is always something you can do, even now. Let's get practical. If you planted on time and your tomato plants already have their first cluster set, congratulations, you're doing well. Your job now is to protect what you have. Apply the other four mistakes and focus on making sure the heat doesn't ruin the harvest that is already coming. And here's the trick that saves your higher flowers. Shade cloth. A mesh that provides a few hours of shade during the hottest part of the afternoon lowers the plant's temperature by a few degrees. And sometimes those few degrees are exactly the difference between pollen that works and pollen that doesn't. Don't cover the whole plant or leave it in the dark. Just give it a breather during the oven hours. That, plus mulch and deep watering, keeps the plant setting fruit longer. And if you planted late and find yourself flowering in the middle of the heat, please don't throw the plant away. That plant still has two chances. The first, the shade cloth to try and scrape together some fruit set during the less hot hours. And the second, the heat doesn't last all year. As soon as the summer starts to ease up, around late August or September, when the nights become cool again, the pollen regains its strength, and your tomato plant, if you have kept it healthy, is ready to set a wonderful fall harvest. Many of the best tomato harvests I've ever picked have been in September. Hold on to the plant, and the plant will pay you back. These 5 mistakes are not 5 isolated things. They are a single idea. Stop drowning the plant with misunderstood care and start giving it what it truly needs. None of them are fixed by working harder. They are all fixed by working smarter. Daily watering is more work than deep watering every 3 days. Wetting the whole plant uses more water than watering just the base. Fertilizing nonstop is more expensive than fertilizing at exactly the right time. The difference is knowing where to put the effort. I ruined seasons making these 5 mistakes all at once, convinced I was doing everything right. The day I understood that it wasn't a matter of trying harder, but of stopping these 5 things, my garden changed completely. And yours can change too. Start with one correction today. Grab the scissors and remove those bottom leaves. Tomorrow, water at the base and in the morning. The garden doesn't reward the one who runs the fastest. It rewards the one who understands what they are doing. If this guide has changed the way you understand growing your tomatoes, make sure to subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the secrets of the soil that many have forgotten. Cultivate your own future with wisdom. The next treasure of knowledge for your garden will open very soon.